The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a phone call from my bank. I was in the middle of fixing a customer's laptop. My small computer repair shop kept me busy but comfortable. Steady work, honest hours. Then my cell phone buzzed. "Mr. Daniel Carter, this is Margaret from First National Bank. We need to discuss the defaulted payments on your business expansion loan." I frowned, setting down my screwdriver. There must be a mistake. I don't have any business loans. "Sir," she said, her voice tightening, "we're looking at a $2 million loan taken in your name 18 months ago for Carter Enterprises. All documentation was properly signed and verified with your social security number and identification." My blood ran cold. Carter Enterprises. That was my twin brother Dennis's company, or at least I thought it was. "I need copies of all those documents," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "I never took out that loan." But even as I said it, I knew exactly what had happened. Dennis had always been the ambitious one, the entrepreneur who jumped from one business venture to another while I stayed in our hometown, building my modest repair shop. We were identical twins, but we couldn't have been more different. After hanging up with the bank, I started digging. What I found made me sick to my stomach. Dennis hadn't just taken out one loan in my name. He'd built his entire business empire using my identity. Multiple loans, credit cards, business licenses, all under my name and my social security number. He'd been living as me, building his dream on my credit while I worked long hours fixing computers and phones. The worst part, it had been easy for him. We shared the same face, the same DNA. He knew everything about me, from my mother's maiden name to my first pet's name. All the security questions, all the verification processes. He could pass them all. That evening, I sat in my shop surrounded by half-repaired electronics, trying to process the magnitude of what my own twin had done to me. The business he built, Carter Enterprises, was a chain of high-end electronic stores. Direct competition to my small repair shop. He'd used my identity to compete with me to potentially put me out of business. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. I called Dennis immediately, but his number was disconnected. His office said he was unavailable. His apartment was empty. He'd vanished, leaving me holding the bag for millions in debt. That was a year ago. What followed was a nightmare of legal battles, credit disputes, and endless documentation proving I was the victim of identity theft. By my own twin brother. The banks were skeptical. The police were confused. How could I prove I wasn't responsible when the perpetrator shared my DNA? But I was meticulous. I gathered security camera footage from my shop showing I was working during meetings Dennis had attended as me. I collected witness statements from my customers. Slowly, painfully, I built my case. Then, just as I was starting to get my life back on track, I got another call, this time from a hospital in Chicago. "Mr. Carter," a nurse said softly, "your brother Dennis is here. He's been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He's asking for you." I gripped my phone tighter. "Did he tell you what he did to me?" "He did," she said quietly. "He wants to make things right before," she trailed off, but I knew what she wasn't saying. Dennis was dying. I booked a flight to Chicago that night, but not out of brotherly love. Dennis had built something using my name, my identity. If he was dying, I wanted what was rightfully mine. What I didn't tell the nurse, or anyone, was that I'd spent the last year doing more than just clearing my name. I'd been working with a team of lawyers, accountants, and private investigators, meticulously documenting every instance of fraud, every forged signature, every stolen document. I tracked down former employees and business partners, anyone who could testify that Dennis had been impersonating me. I gathered security footage, bank records, and emails. Everything that proved he built his empire through identity theft. Most importantly, I discovered something Dennis didn't know. Because everything was in my name. Legally, I owned it all. The flight to Chicago gave me time to think about our shared history. Dennis and I had been close once, before ambition and greed drove him to betray me. We shared everything as kids. Clothes, toys, dreams. But somewhere along the way, Dennis decided sharing wasn't enough. He wanted it all. As the plane descended into O'Hare, I thought about what I was about to do. Dennis was dying, asking to make amends. A better man might have found it in his heart to forgive. But I wasn't feeling particularly forgiving. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Dennis lay in the bed, a shadow of his former self. Cancer had taken his hair, his vigor, even some of the features that once made us identical. For the first time in our lives, we didn't look like mirrors of each other. "Danny," he wheezed, trying to sit up. "You came." "Not for you," I said, staying by the door. "For what's mine?" He slumped back against the pillows, a bitter smile crossing his gaunt face. "Always the straight shooter," he rasped. "That's why I knew you'd be perfect." "Perfect for what?" I demanded. "Having my identity stolen? My credit destroyed? My reputation ruined?" "No," he coughed, reaching weakly for a cup of water. "Perfect to take over everything I built. It's all in your name anyway." "Who better?" "The twin who stole my life, Part 2. The confession." "To run it better than you," he whispered. I stared at him, not quite believing what I was hearing. "You think that's why I'm here? To take over your company?" "Our company," he corrected weakly. "Carter Enterprises is legally yours, Danny. Always has been. I just borrowed your identity to build it." "Borrowed?" I couldn't help but laugh, the sound harsh in the sterile hospital room. "You committed fraud, Dennis. Multiple counts of identity theft. You left me with millions in debt. I almost lost everything." He waved a frail hand dismissively. "But look what I created. 20 stores across 3 states, annual revenue of over $15 million. I took your name and made it mean something." "My name already meant something," I said quietly. "It meant honest work. Satisfied customers. A business I built with my own hands, not stolen identities and forged signatures." Dennis's face darkened. "Still thinking small, little brother? That's always been your problem." I saw the bigger picture. "The bigger picture?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out my phone. With one tap, the sound of Dennis's own voice filled the room. A recorded conversation with a bank manager where he clearly identified himself as me, taking out another fraudulent loan. "I've got dozens more like this," I said, stopping the playback. "Security footage. Witness statements. Bank records. Everything documenting your fraud." He shifted uncomfortably against the pillows. "What's your point?" "My point," I said evenly, "is that I'm not here to take over your company, Dennis. I'm here to take back what's mine, and make sure you face the consequences for what you did." "I'm dying," he spat, his voice cracking. "What more consequences do you want?" "Justice," I replied simply, pulling a thick folder from my briefcase. "These are papers from my lawyers. You're going to sign a full confession, admitting to every instance of fraud and identity theft. You're going to provide details of every account you opened in my name, every document you forged, every lie you told." He glared at me, defiance flickering through his sunken eyes. "And why would I do that?" "Because if you don't," I said calmly, "I'll press charges right now. You'll spend your final days in a prison hospital instead of here. And everything you built will be dismantled piece by piece." His face contorted with rage, then collapsed into resignation. "You'd do that to your own twin? You stopped being my twin the moment you stole my identity." He signed the papers with trembling hands. Each page detailed another betrayal, another forgery, another lie. When he finished, I had what I needed: legal proof that Carter Enterprises had been built through fraud. "What now?" he asked, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Now," I said, "I'm going to do what you never could: run an honest business." Over the next few weeks, I worked with my lawyers to transform Carter Enterprises. I kept the stores open but rebranded them, implementing ethical business practices and fair pricing. I hired back the employees Dennis had cheated, paid off the fraudulent debts, and slowly rebuilt the company's reputation. Dennis died 3 weeks after signing the confession. I attended his funeral but didn't speak. Instead, I stood in silence thinking about choices. His choice to betray me, my choice to pursue justice, and now my choice about how to move forward. Under honest management, the company thrived. I expanded my original repair shop into the existing stores, creating a hybrid model of sales and service. Customers appreciated the transparency, the fair prices, the focus on repairs over replacements. Yesterday, I received an industry award for ethical business practices. The irony wasn't lost on me. The company my brother built through fraud was now being celebrated for its integrity. In my acceptance speech, I talked about choices and consequences, about building success through honesty rather than shortcuts. I didn't mention Dennis, but I knew he would have hated every word. This morning, I hung his signed confession in my office, not out of spite but as a reminder. A reminder that success built on lies will eventually crumble. But success built on truth can last forever. The company still bears the Carter name, but now it stands for something different. Not the grandiose dreams of a man who took what wasn't his, but the steady determination of someone who rebuilt it all piece by piece the right way. Dennis wanted to make our name mean something. In the end, I did, just not in the way he intended.